the daughter she chose, then forgot. Have you ever wondered how someone can go from being the center of a person's world to becoming completely invisible? Imagine being the child your mother prayed for, loved with all her heart, and proudly called her greatest blessing, only to lose that place the moment a miracle baby was born. And years later, when everyone else abandoned her, the daughter she forgot was the only one who came back. This is the story of Margaret Okafor, and the greatest mistake of her life. Margaret Okafor was one of the wealthiest women in the city. She owned successful businesses, beautiful homes, expensive cars, and was admired wherever she went. People called her blessed. But Margaret carried a quiet pain that no amount of money could erase. She desperately wanted a child. For years she visited hospitals, specialists, and fertility clinics. Every doctor gave her the same heartbreaking answer. Her chances of becoming a mother were almost impossible. At first she cried. Then she prayed. Eventually, she accepted what she believed was her destiny. One Saturday morning, Margaret visited a local orphanage to donate food, clothes, and school supplies. She had no idea that visit would change her life forever. As she greeted the children, one little girl quietly sat beneath a tree reading an old picture book. Unlike the others, she wasn't asking for attention. She simply smiled. The orphanage director introduced her. Her name is Amara. She lost both her parents when she was very young. Margaret knelt beside her. "What are you reading?" Amara smiled shyly. "I don't know all the words, but I like the pictures." Something about the little girl's gentle spirit touched Margaret's heart. She couldn't explain it. Before leaving that afternoon, she made a decision. She wanted Amara to become her daughter. A few weeks later, the adoption was complete. Margaret welcomed Amara into her luxurious mansion with open arms. She decorated a beautiful bedroom just for her. She bought new dresses, toys, books, and everything a little girl could dream of. Every birthday became a grand celebration. Every school achievement was rewarded. Whenever people asked about her daughter, Margaret proudly replied, "This is Amara, the greatest gift God ever gave me." Amara believed every word. She loved Margaret with all her heart. She called her mom. And Margaret truly treated her like her own child. For nearly 10 wonderful years, they shared a life filled with laughter, bedtime stories, vacations, and unforgettable memories. Then the impossible happened. One morning, Margaret fainted during a business meeting. Her staff rushed her to the hospital. After several tests, the doctor entered the room wearing the biggest smile. "Congratulations. You're going to have a baby." Margaret stared in disbelief. Tears filled her eyes. The miracle she had stopped praying for had finally arrived. Months later, she gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. She named her Ella. The family celebrated. Friends threw lavish parties. Newspapers even wrote about the successful businesswoman who had become a mother against all odds. Everyone celebrated Ella's arrival. Almost no one noticed that Amara had quietly stopped smiling. At first, the changes seemed small. Margaret missed bedtime stories. She forgot school events. She no longer asked how Amara's day had gone. Whenever Amara wanted to spend time together, Margaret gently replied, "Not now, sweetheart. The baby needs me." Amara understood. Or at least she tried to. Weeks became months. Months became years. Ella became the center of everything. New toys filled the house. Birthday parties became larger than ever. Family portraits hung proudly on the walls. But slowly, Amara disappeared from them. One afternoon, Margaret called her upstairs. "I've decided Ella should have the bigger bedroom. You'll move into the smaller room near the kitchen." Amara nodded quietly. "If that's what you want, Mom." The new room was barely larger than a storage space. Still, she never complained. As Ella grew older, Margaret spoiled her endlessly. Every request became an order. Every mistake was excused. Every tantrum was rewarded. Ella learned that the world existed to serve her, including Amara. "Bring me water. I can't find my shoes. Clean my room. I'm hungry." Day after day, Amara obeyed. Visitors often assumed she was one of the household workers. "The maid is very polite," they would say. Margaret heard those words countless times. She never corrected them. Each silence hurt Amara more than any insult. Yet she continued showing kindness. She cooked. She cleaned. She helped Ella with homework. She even stayed awake caring for her whenever she became sick. Despite everything, she never stopped loving the family that had forgotten her. Years passed. Both girls became young women. Amara graduated with excellent grades. She had worked tirelessly despite carrying responsibilities no student should have. Margaret simply smiled and said, "That's nice." A week later, Ella received average results. Margaret organized a huge celebration. Amara quietly clapped from the corner. Soon, both daughters found good men and prepared for marriage. Margaret spared no expense for Ella's wedding. Luxury decorations, a famous designer gown, hundreds of distinguished guests. It became the wedding everyone talked about. When Amara married a humble, hard-working man named David, the ceremony was simple, beautiful, but simple. Margaret attended briefly before leaving early. After the reception, she pulled Amara aside. "You have your own family now. You don't need to keep coming back here. Focus on your husband." Amara looked into the eyes of the woman she still called mother. For a moment, she hoped Margaret would hug her. Instead, Margaret simply walked away. Amara wiped away a tear. She entered the car beside David. Without anger, without revenge, only sadness. Years passed. Margaret grew older. The once lively mansion became strangely quiet. Ella inherited many of her mother's expensive tastes. She traveled constantly. She attended exclusive events. She always seemed too busy. Margaret called often. "Ella, when are you visiting?" "Soon, Mom. I'm just busy." Next month never came. When Margaret became ill, the calls became even shorter. "I'm out of the country. I have meetings. I'll send someone." Money arrived. Flowers arrived. Ella never did. One by one, longtime servants resigned. Old friends stopped visiting. Point zero. Business slowed. The giant mansion echoed with silence. For the first time in decades, Margaret felt completely alone. Then one cold evening, rain poured heavily outside. A gentle knock sounded at the front door. Margaret slowly opened it. Standing there was Amara, holding groceries, medicine, fresh blankets, and the same warm smile she had worn as a little girl beneath the orphanage tree. "I heard you weren't feeling well, so I came." Margaret couldn't speak. From that day forward, Amara became her greatest support. She cooked every meal. She cleaned every room. She drove Margaret to doctor's appointments. She reminded her to take her medicine. When Margaret couldn't sleep, Amara stayed beside her. Not because she expected an inheritance. Not because she wanted praise. She simply chose love. One evening, Margaret watched Amara quietly preparing tea. Tears rolled down her face. She whispered, "After everything I did to you, why are you still here?" Amara walked over and gently held her hand. Then she smiled. "You chose me when nobody else wanted me. I couldn't let your worst mistake erase your greatest act of kindness." Margaret broke down completely. In that moment, she finally understood. The daughter she had treasured because they shared the same blood had left her behind. The daughter she had pushed aside still called her mom. Margaret spent the rest of her life making things right. She apologized sincerely. She introduced Amara proudly as her daughter once again. Not her adopted daughter. Simply, her daughter. Even Ella, seeing the depth of Amara's forgiveness, began to realize that love is not something that can be demanded. It must be earned. Because family isn't created by blood alone. It is built through loyalty, through sacrifice, through forgiveness, and through choosing to love. Even when it isn't easy. Remember this. The people you take for granted today may be the very ones who stand beside you when everyone else walks away. True family is built through love and loyalty, not blood alone. If you enjoy our story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more interesting story.